I'm Skylar Monroe, and this is the story you'll want to listen to from start to finish. If you're looking for a tale of betrayal, secrets, and a revenge that went viral, hit the play button and settle in. I'll take you through every twist, every whispered promise, and every moment that made me decide that the only way to survive was to become the storm my family never saw coming. I was 27 when my mother died. She left us a house on the edge of town, a modest but beautiful Victorian that had seen better days, and a will that promised everything to my older brother, Ethan. The funeral was a blur of black suits, cheap coffee, and the constant, oppressive feeling that something wasn't right. I clenched the envelope in my hand, the paper thin and warm from the funeral home's heater. It was addressed to me in my mother's looping handwriting, but it was never opened. I slipped it into my coat pocket, promising myself I'd read it later, when the house wasn't full of strangers. The will was read 3 days later in the lawyer's office. "To my beloved children," the lawyer began, his voice monotone, "I leave my entire estate to my son, Ethan, as he has always been the responsible one." Ethan's eyes widened, a grin spreading across his face. My heart hammered in my chest, but I said nothing. The lawyer handed me a copy of the will, and I felt the weight of the paper like a stone. That night, after the house had emptied and the candles had burned low, I finally pulled the forgotten letter from my coat. It was a single sheet, folded neatly, the ink slightly smudged from the rain that had fallen on the porch that afternoon. "My dear Skylar," it began, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone. There is something you must know. The will is a lie. The house, the money, none of it belongs to Ethan, it's yours. I hid the truth because I feared for your safety. Find the key in the attic. It will open the vault beneath the floorboards in the library. Trust no one." My breath caught. The attic, a vault. My mind raced. I remembered the old oak chest in the attic that had been locked for years. My mother used to tell me stories about a family secret but never elaborated. I slipped the letter into my pocket, my hands shaking. I had to act, but I also had to be careful. Ethan was already planning a celebration party, inviting everyone from the country club to the local bar. If he discovered I was onto something, he'd stop me. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. I helped Ethan set up the party, arranging balloons and string lights in the backyard. While he was busy, I slipped upstairs to the attic. The wooden stairs creaked under my weight, echoing like a warning. Dust motes danced in the thin beam of sunlight that slipped through a cracked window. The chest sat in the corner, covered in a faded quilt. I lifted the lid, and inside lay a rusted iron key, a small leather-bound journal, and a photograph of my mother standing in front of the house, smiling, with a man I didn't recognize. I pocketed the key and the journal, my heart pounding. The journal was filled with entries dated over the past 10 years. My mother wrote about a partnership with a man named Victor Hale, a businessman who had helped her hide money from my father, who had died in a car accident when I was a child. She wrote that Victor had promised to protect us, but after my father's death, he began to demand more control, shares, and eventually, silence. She wrote that she had hidden the bulk of the estate in a vault beneath the library, and that the only way to access it was with the key she gave me. She feared that Ethan, who had been swayed by Victor's influence, would sell the house and everything else to line Victor's pockets. I closed the journal, feeling a cold resolve settle over me. I had to get to the library before Ethan's party was in full swing. I slipped back downstairs, my mind racing with a plan. I needed a distraction. I remembered the old radio in the kitchen that always crackled with static. I turned it on, tuned it to a frequency that sounded like a storm, and placed it near the open window. The static grew louder, and soon the whole house filled with the sound of wind and distant thunder. Ethan, ever the perfectionist, rushed outside to check the lights, shouting for someone to fix the damn radio. I seized the moment, slipped into the library, and locked the door behind me. The room was dim, the shelves heavy with books that smelled of age and pine. I searched the floorboards, feeling for any irregularities. Finally, my fingers brushed a small groove. I pressed, and a section of the floor gave way, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. I descended, the air growing colder with each step. At the bottom, a small vault door stood, its surface covered in rust. I inserted the iron key, and it turned with a groan that seemed to echo through the entire house. The door swung open, revealing a room filled with boxes, gold bars, and a large leather-bound ledger. I opened the ledger and saw names: politicians, businessmen, even a judge, all linked to Victor Hale's network. This was the evidence my mother had hidden, the leverage she hoped would protect us. I heard footsteps above, muffled voices. Ethan had discovered the library door locked. "Skylar, what are you doing?" he called, his tone a mixture of anger and concern. I quickly gathered a few gold bars and the ledger, tucking them into a bag I had brought. I whispered a promise to my mother, "I'll fix this," and slipped back up the stairs, closing the vault behind me. The party was in full swing when I re-entered the backyard. The lights were blinking, the music thumping, and Ethan was standing by the bar, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his eyes scanning the crowd. I walked up to him, the bag hidden under my coat, and forced a smile. "Hey, big brother," I said. "You missed the best part of the night." He raised an eyebrow, but before he could respond, the radio crackled again, this time with a news alert. Local businessman Victor Hale has been arrested on multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. The crowd gasped, and Ethan's face went pale. I slipped away to the bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out the ledger. I had a copy of the ledger on my phone, but the original was too dangerous to keep. I called a friend, Maya, a hacker who owed me a favor. "Maya, I need you to broadcast this to every news outlet, every social media platform. Make it go viral," I whispered. She agreed, and within minutes the ledger's contents were splashed across the internet. Headlines read, "The Hale Network exposed, judge, mayor, and business tycoon named." The story exploded, and Victor Hale's name trended worldwide. The next morning, the house was surrounded by police cars and news vans. Ethan was arrested, his hands cuffed as he shouted, "You'll regret this, Skylar." I watched from the porch. The sunrise painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The house, once a symbol of my family's oppression, now felt like a beacon of truth. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was massive. Victor Hale's empire crumbled, his assets frozen, his associates fleeing. The ledger's revelations led to a series of investigations that toppled a corrupt mayor, a crooked judge, and several high-profile CEOs. The story became a case study in journalism schools, and my voice, recorded on Maya's live stream, was shared millions of times. People left comments like, "Skylar saved our city," and "This is the revenge we needed." But the victory was bittersweet. My mother's journal revealed that she had made a deal with Victor to protect us, but she never intended for the ledger to be used the way I did. She wanted to expose him, yes, but she also wanted to keep the family intact. I felt a pang of guilt, wondering if I had become the monster she feared. One night, as I sat on the porch, the house quiet except for the crickets, Maya called. "Skylar, you need to see this," she said, her voice urgent. She sent me a link to a video that was already going viral, a deepfake of me confessing to a crime I didn't commit, framed in a way that made it look like I had orchestrated the entire downfall for personal gain. The caption read, "Skylar Monroe, the mastermind behind the Hale scandal." My heart sank. The same internet that had praised me was now turning on me. Comments flooded in. "She's just a gold digger," she played us all. I felt the familiar sting of betrayal, but this time it was from strangers who had believed my story just hours before. I realized that in the age of viral content, truth is a fragile thing. I decided to take control of the narrative. I recorded a live stream, my face illuminated by the soft glow of the porch light, and began to speak. "You all wanted a story," I said, "and you got one. But you got only half of it. The ledger was real, the corruption was real, and Victor Hale deserved everything that happened to him. But I am not a villain. I am a daughter who lost her mother, a sister who lost her brother, and a woman who refused to be silenced." I showed the original letter, the journal, the key, every piece of evidence that proved my innocence. The live stream went viral too. People began to differentiate between the deepfake and the real me. Donations poured in from supporters who believed in my cause. A crowdfunding campaign was set up to help victims of Victor's schemes, and I was invited to speak at a congressional hearing about online misinformation. Ethan, released on bail, came to see me one evening, his eyes hollow. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I was blinded by Victor. I thought I was protecting the family." I looked at him, the brother I had once loved, now a broken man. "You had a choice," I said. "We all do." He nodded, tears streaming down his face, and left, his future uncertain. Months later, the house was sold. The proceeds went to a foundation I started in my mother's name to help victims of financial abuse and to fund digital literacy programs. I moved into a small apartment downtown, the city lights reflecting off the walls, reminding me that even in the darkest places, there is a flicker of hope. I still receive messages from people who say my story inspired them to stand up against corruption, to question wills and legal documents, to look for the forgotten letters hidden in their own families. I've become a voice for the voiceless, a reminder that revenge can be a catalyst for change if wielded with purpose. If you're listening to this, know that the truth is out there, but it's up to you to find it. Don't let a forgotten letter become a lifetime of regret. And if you ever feel like the world has turned against you, remember, sometimes the best way to rewrite your story is to become the author of your own revenge, one that ends with justice, not just vengeance. This is Skylar Monroe, signing off. If you liked this story, hit the subscribe button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment. Let's keep the conversation going, because the next forgotten letter might be yours.